Okay, I'm bringing this next story to you. A U.S. opioid epidemic hit Staten Island funeral homes hard. Director turns activist. And thank you, Claude Black, for this story. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and do this. When Kevin Moran speaks to young people, he unscrolls about a dozen letter-sized papers taped together and holds them squarely in front of them. Um, and what these are, when he's holding it up, are death certificates of many people that have died from accidental overdose on opioids. So many of these people, and I believe like when they talk about the tainted batch, it's really fentanyl. Fentanyl is the one thing that they mix in to these batches that kill many of these young people. So he's yelling at them, don't do it, Moran yells at the audience in one of his talks last year. I don't want to see you in my funeral home. I'm here
We're
for one
losing a
reason.
generation. The drug epidemic.
I'm here for one reason, and that's to scare the living crap out of you. If you want to come by the funeral home when I have a drug overdose case, I'll bring you. I'll show you what the person looks like, and I'll show you what the family goes through. And you watch it, and then tell me you want to do it. Unfortunately, I hear where he's going with this, but believe me, even showing a dead body to a junkie is not going to inspire them to get off of drugs. Okay, you can't even get these people into rehab. Do you really think, even if you scare them into looking at dead bodies and looking at the grieving family, they're going to stop? They're not. They're not, ladies and gentlemen. They are so hooked on these drugs that if they really in their hearts don't want to get off of the drug, even when they hear about other people dying, they're just not going to do it. The toll of the opioid epidemic that has dripped communities across the United States began making itself felt in Staten Island about 3 years ago, when the bodies of people barely old enough to drive or buy a beer began appearing in larger and larger numbers at the St. John Scalia Home for Funerals in this New York City borough, where many residents work in public service. So it was around 2014 is when they start seeing their highest amounts of casualties to the opioid plague that's going on in the country. So he's talking the casualties of opioid addiction at the funeral home began to appear at a rate of one every 4 to 6 weeks. Every one of Staten Island's 13 funeral homes had similar experiences. Last year, accidental overdose in Staten Island accounted for the deaths of more than 100 people, a jump of 35% over 2015, according to health officials. Nationwide, 52,404 people died from a drug overdose, up from 47,055 in 2014, according to the Centers for Disease Control. A majority of 63% of the deaths involved in opioids. So, he's just talking about how emotionally he's about it, and he's a parent and blah, blah, blah. But, we saw none of this empathy during the crack epidemic. Never lose sight of that, ladies and gentlemen. We saw none of this. They were glad to throw you in jail and not care that you were struggling with drug addiction, and maybe that had everything to do with you committing a crime in the first place. They didn't want to hear it. But with them, they want to love them, they want to embrace them, they want to get in front of them and give them hand-holding talks and pat them on the head and tell them, oh, you be all right. But nobody did that. I don't remember anybody from the Caucasoid community coming into the Black community to talk us out of doing crack. You were quite fine with the whole thing, okay? But you now have an issue and you want understanding from everybody else that it's a public health issue. Sorry, but let me go ahead and play this video.
Epidemic is so different than any others. My name is Kevin Moran, and I'm one of the funeral directors here at Scalia Funeral Home in Staten Island. When you have a death of a young child, a teenager, a young adult, and you listen to the talk in the room, it's what they've been deprived of, what they will be missing out on. Parents would be possibly losing the ability to have grandchildren. A father is missing the opportunity to walk his daughter down the aisle, graduations. All those things that make family memories. As we got into 2015, it became much more prevalent. And not only here, but most funeral homes on Staten Island. There is no socioeconomic barrier. You could be the wealthiest kid and the poorest kid, and drugs don't care. Today, the drug user is a person in a suit, is a professional, could be an accountant, could be a lawyer, and the person selling the pills could be your next door neighbor. And that's the scary part. It's the effect of throwing a rock into the water, and it is amazing how many people's lives are impacted and affected by someone using drugs. Drug addiction is a disease like cancer, and you need to treat the disease. The world in 2017 is not designed for parents to bury their children. If you want to see your son or your daughter, you're not going to see them at the dining room table. You're not going to be watching television. You're going to go stand on a piece of grass and look at a 3-foot-high piece of granite. That's where you see your child. The very fabric of me is just torn apart when I see these deaths occurring, and most of them can be prevented. They don't have to happen. There are avoidable deaths.
No, he's right, but where were all these funeral directors during the crack epidemic? Did anybody recall all these white funeral directors coming forward and speaking when we were going through it? I don't remember this. And I don't remember seeing anybody except for the police show up for the crack epidemic. Okay. But now they want all of this public awareness to their drug addiction. Well, I don't have anything to give as far as sympathy is concerned, but I feel bad, but not bad enough where I want to reach out to any of these junkies. You know, they watched our crack addicts die and get placed in jail, and we didn't hear not one murmur from the Caucasoid community. In fact, they were applauding the police for putting us in jail. Now you are going through probably one of the most devastating drug plagues that ever hit this country. Don't turn your face to look at Black people for empathy now. I don't have any to give you, and I won't give it. Like Tareen Rain said, I feel nothing. Please leave your comment and subscribe, and if you can donate to this channel, please do. Peace, family.